Hi, everyone. I'm Libby, and this is a 5-part series called Reflections on the Mind. And I'm going to be reading it out loud, although you can read it yourself on my Substack. But I wanted to just start with a quick note about the vulnerabilities, even though my writing is going to talk about my vulnerabilities in writing about this. I want to just start with my brother Dan for a moment, because today is 5 years since losing him. And I actually don't want to write about my personal experience. I'm really working on the mind. I want to be someone who can further help people and support people in healthy relationships to their mind. And with that, I want to be really careful with the words that I use. I want to, it just feels so complex. It's so complex. And it's complex because the way that we talk about it can further create pain for people. I'm aware of that. And so for me, there's just so much sensitivity. And at the same time, when I think about Dan and I think about the fact that he is not getting to interact on this earth anymore, and I am, and he is free from his mental suffering, and I am not. I know that I have an option to share about these things. And so I guess the number one thing that I want to say is that I'm changing and I'm growing, and my understanding is growing and changing. And also, what I do know is that as an artist, which Dan was an artist and I am an artist, navigating all the time what my mediums are, but my mediums are the elements of life first and foremost. The biggest thing that has shifted, and maybe I'll write about this in one of the next parts, but the biggest thing that has shifted is that as an artist, there's the whole concept of the tortured artist. And there's this big feeling that if I, as an artist, work on my mind, I will end up losing the essence of my art, because it is being tortured. It is the way that I feel so intensely that allows me to create. That's what creates freedom. That's what creates liberation in my soul. So I can deal with the mental pain because that is also the source of my art. And I'm actually afraid that if I deal too greatly with the mind, I will lose that essence of myself. And as someone who has been working with my mind in the last 5 years in alternative ways, I can say more of my artist has been able to come forth. And part of that is that we live in a world that we have no control over. Or I shouldn't, again, words matter. We have control over very limited things. So if you are an artist and you feel deeply, and you're actually afraid of feeling less, if you were to work on the mind, I just want to invite that your artistry is so infinite that it could never disappear, be reduced, or go away, because more of your mind was working for you. And in fact, the more that your mind is working for you, the more that you will be able to feel. So I'm going to start with my first writing piece. And yeah, my hope was actually to write in the weeks prior to this anniversary, but it didn't work out. And even writing this one, I feel I have to write and share and release and let it go in order to write anymore, because I don't know who I'm speaking to yet. And my hope is that I'm speaking for myself and to people who haven't had, I kind of forget that there's an extraordinary privilege in having somebody very close to me die, which is that I get to speak about it. I get to speak about death. I get to speak about loss. I get to speak about my own grief. And a lot of times I can just call what I'm going through grief because there's elements of what that is. But the other side of these last 5 years is about how it surfaced my own relationship with my own mind, my own experience with depression. And after 5 years of continuous relationship to this, I am like, oh, okay, we are not out of this. And um, and now that it's 5 years, it's not like there's a timeline and I can say, oh, I should be over the grief by now. But at the same time, there is a degree where you're like, whoa, this has become a doorway for more of me to come forth. And there's moments where life feels so normal again that I'm like almost sickened and almost like saddened that if he hadn't passed, these parts probably would not have been addressed. They probably wouldn't have come forth. I already was exploring the mind. I'm already curious about all these things. I was already curious about all these things with him. But there's a degree to, I mean, what am I talking about? A degree. I've literally spent 365 days a year for 5 years processing and feeling and going through all of this. And so that's the gift. That is the gift in this experience that I just want to name. That is a gift, is that I have had to hold this. I have gotten to face myself more deeply. And I've gotten to also, be seen and be validated in it in a way that so many people can't be seen. They can be, and I hope we have a world where more of us can be, but can't be seen as easily because our culture is such right now still that the invisible is mocked, reduced, and deeply oversimplified. And what I mean by that, it's pretty intuitive, but the reason why I at large use the word the invisible is if we hadn't cut open the human body and known what was here, all of that's invisible. And that's so many different systems, your digestive system, your nervous system, your hormonal systems, your bone structure, your muscles, right? All of that you could call invisible, but there's so much interworking going on the physical that we can see. So let alone all that we can't see. And it's natural for us as humans to want to simplify. And there are some things that are simpler, but I do not think the invisible realms of our being are simple. And I am grateful that this entire experience in the last 5 years has allowed for deep inquiry into the invisible, the energetic, the conscious, the spiritual, the mental, the however you want to frame it. And that I can hold that there are so many dimensions there and there's so much that I don't know. And then also just acknowledge my own bias that I am not anti-Western medicine. However, I choose to write from a humanistic perspective right now of my own experience, because the human experience, it doesn't segment out the invisible from the experience. And when we're looking at science, with our current model of science, we are looking at what can be measured, what can be seen. So the words that we have to describe things, or the words that we have to describe things that are visible, tangible, and on paper, it still doesn't mean it's the root of the thing. So even when I use the word depression, I'm talking about a common experience of depleted energy and, you know, things that that might have chemical imagery to go with it, or scientific studies to say this is what the impacts are. That's still not talking about what the root of the thing is. And that is what needs to be explored for this issue to be addressed. But it doesn't reduce the fact that it exists, that the outer condition exists. In the same way, if we were all having migraines, it doesn't mean that the migraine's roots aren't in the deeper energetic and subtle realms. It just means that, and it doesn't make medicine irrelevant, but it does mean for those of us who are seeking longer term healing and are seeking longer term liberation for this generation and beyond, we're going to have to be evaluating the other things. I hope that gives somewhat of an intro of both my personal stake in this and then my own desire professionally as well to work with the mind and then artistically to try to create, speak. And there's one more thing that I'll add here, which is that I believe that it is on artists to help with this. With this, I mean this moment of mental dis-ease. We are in a moment of mental dis-ease on one hand. On the other hand, we're in a wonderful moment where mental dis-ease is being discussed and validated and named. So this is actually great because something can't be faced if it's not named, if it's not seen. The question for us is just, can we be able to face it without being so tempted to believe that it's a permanent thing that the society will always face, because nothing is. All right, shedding snakeskin relating to depression, reflections on the mind, part 1. This is a 5-part series honoring my 5-year journey with the mind in the wake of losing my brother Dan to suicide. And one other thing I want to name is that I am, in the work that I'm doing moving forward, I will most likely will be capitalizing the mind. I believe that the mind is sacred. And what I mean by sacred is worthy of preservation and honoring, and especially for someone who's going to be working on like political advocacy and change around the way that we're working with artificial intelligence. I'm going to be at the forefront of looking at human intelligence and safeguarding how we protect the minds of young children and how we use different intelligences within our learning environments. Okay, that's a side note. The prison of expression. There are 2 kinds of pain I want to express and get to release, yet expressing feels like its own kind of prison. Where will the words go? What images will they form in minds which I can't control? My ego screams. How will they impact how I'm seen and the work I'm trying to do in the world? To express or not to express. Pro, there may be a sense of release. Considerations. Words hold power, and I want to be careful about how I speak about things that carry chains for so many people. I'm just pausing on that to acknowledge, like, our experiences with depression are different. And so I am choosing to describe my relationship to it as someone who, in the traditional language that psychology gives to things, I am much more manic than I am depressive. I experience much more mania than depressive episodes. So I'm going to write about this later, but like, it is for that reason that I feel the desire to describe my relationship to depression. And I also do this only with the attempt to create greater freedom for people who experience it at greater degrees, intensities, lengths of time, and just honor you and see you and honor that I have not lived that. Pros, this could be a simple act. This is about me and not anybody else. Considerations, of course, it's about others. Like, can I do it justice? Does this help or hurt the people who have it worse than I do, or who are still in the midst? Is there anything of value, anything I speak can offer, when the only true consistency of darkness is her inconsistency in both how she shows up to oneself and others? Pros, I can put some words to it. Considerations, it feels too hard. Pros, the reality won't go away in the silence. The cuffs of depression. All that to say, I feel afraid to write about depression. I will choose to describe her not as a psychological condition, though linguistic and medical accuracy matters as we learn to address her on a personal collective level. For now, I will describe her instead as a friend and a human experience I have come to know in the last 5 years. She manifests in 100 forms, the ultimate shapeshifter. As I write this, what was cuffs around my wrists wrings my neck. Do not speak, she begs. This is our place. This is our world. Do not let them in. And I have to give pause because I'm desperate to listen. So let me breathe and remember my present goal. It's been 5 years since losing my brother to the mind, a journey that has put me in simultaneously reverence, awe, and fear, terror of the mind. And I'm choosing to give myself permission to share one, reflections on body, mind, spirit, hurt, and healing in the last 5 years, and two, depictions of my own self in relationship to depression that has emerged in the process. I'll start with the latter to rip off the band-aid. Looking in her eyes. This is how I've come to understand depression in the years since my brother died. And mind you, the year he died, I was the type of person to say, why don't depressed people just go on a run? Pretty sure the universe smited me for that one. Depression is less like a bad mood and more like the weight of sleeplessness, unable to be shaken. Unable to be shaken doesn't mean irredeemable. Exhaustion has an obvious remedy to sleep, but sleep is not always available for many reasons. A, there are a variety of reasons people struggle to sleep medically, chronically, genetically, and B, chronic exhaustion and sleeplessness also has social roots, be it raising a child in a nuclear family-based society, class and working conditions, gentrification, and being forced to move far from your place of work, the rise in sleep debt since the birth of smartphones, etc. Take it as far back as you want. My intention with making this imperfect analogy is that we are different people when we are tired, just as we are different people when we are hungry, and we are different people when we're chronically tired, when we're deprived. And as helpful as self-help, music, or love or connection can be when we're hungry or tired, they also don't get to the root. With depression being in the mind, it's natural for people who have amplified their experience of life to give 100,000 suggestions based on what amplified their experience from an already stable place. The question for the person dealing with the depression is less about adding anything more and more about sitting with what is present. Yet to work with it when we are not in the low states are essential. The roots are complex and will look differently for different people. And it can feel easy on a journey seeking help to go into further depression when one approach doesn't work. Yet, if you can see your own relationship to depression like sleep deprivation, with a multitude of factors contributing, personal and social, that are aligned and distinct for each person, I believe we can hold both greater compassion for ourselves and others when facing this, and hold visions for healing for ourselves as individuals and collectives. Where power lies. When I speak about depression, there are three things that are important for me. One, the extraordinary power of the mind, and my fundamental belief and commitment to a culture and world where the mind could thrive. I really just want to emphasize that again, because, again, in a culture where we are naming depression for the first time, which is a great thing, acknowledging it, acknowledging mental health. We've also created a culture around her, as if she is as much a part of life as anything, which creates then a new flavor of hopelessness on top of that, because depression is horrible. And you can imagine if we had just started naming cancer and then said, not only are we naming it, watching people die from it, watching an excess of children die from it, watching an excess of teen girls die from it, but we're also going to just say that it's here and here to stay. We don't do that. And I'm not saying that that everyone is saying that, but with cancer, there's an acknowledgement that people can envision a cancer-free world. And yet with mental health, I think there's a fear from within the community of people facing mental health issues of imagining a society free of mental health, because of the fear that there's going to be erasure and dismissal of the reality of mental illness. So can we hold both? That we are not reducing its existence, and also we are opening forth inquiry, and also we are holding vision for its I don't want to say eradication, because on one level, because part of the human experience is always going to be, not always, is going to include pain. But pain is not the same thing as depression. Suffering is not the same thing as depression. But suffering is much more close to depression than pain is. Suffering in the spiritual sense usually means the denial of pain. Depression is the denial of death, the denial of the emotional pain. But we're a society right now that both doesn't acknowledge emotional pain, and then it doesn't acknowledge suffering on top of emotional pain. We need to be, in my opinion, a society that can feel pain and can be free from suffering around feeling pain, and where options exist, because we are not experiencing the same pain at the same time. And again, yeah, this is not it is not to reduce the power of medication, which is as powerful as every damn physical invention we've created to work within the body. And our visions for health in the body require more than medication. Okay, so when I speak about depression, there are three things that are important for me. One, the extraordinary power of the mind and my fundamental belief and commitment to a culture and world where the mind could thrive. Two, the necessity of evaluating the extraordinary power of collective and structural issues and their impact on the mind and mental health. And three, so by collective and structural issues, again, things like long-term, like living in a culture of capitalism that alienates us from each other, but also shorter and more recent term, having access to smartphones that are influenced by people who are selling to us and want us to be alert and online all the time, which is highly destructive for the mind, and are unpoliced in how they are getting us addicted to content that whose content's aim being to self-destroy. because it is a flavor of hating ourselves that keeps us looking and buying and comparing. Again, I'm not hopeless in this space. I actually have hope in this space, but we have to be able to see different layers of our reality to be able to have compassion and change it. Okay, 3, this historical and scientific moment where we work with the mind is changing. That is the number one thing. And the thing that is so important for me about that is, as someone who spent a lot of these years like working with my relationship to religion, let me feel what I want to say here. I could have written it, but I think that it is it's like all in my throat. I think that the reason that this is so important is there's so much polarization here. On the one hand, you have a medical community that has a medical approach, pharmaceutical approach to mental health. On the other hand, you have a spiritual, religious sector of the world that tries to say, if you believe in God, you shouldn't suffer. Or if you are trusting the universe, then all your problems will be healed. And then you have this middle ground of reality. And there's a temptation. There's such a temptation to choose a camp and it just be like, and obviously if you work in one or the other, you're going to have evidence of the other. I was watching, oh gosh, I don't even mean to quote this, but yeah, like I'm in a different spaces. So I'm less in the formally medical, but I want to pursue a degree in this in some space. So I value science and I love a lot of people within the space, specifically of trauma healing. So on the one hand, I value that. In the spiritual, I believe in consciousness, I believe in energy, and I'm so grateful to be free of that now and to know that I get to name that. I also believe in the power of religion, although I believe we have misunderstandings with it. So, and then I also believe in non-traditional medicines like psychedelic healing. So what's funny is that I heard this, I don't know, I was listening to this thing the other day from a religious environment where these people were talking about being like completely healed and sober, like as if God took away their temptation. And while I want to celebrate these stories, it's so harmful. It's so harmful to propagate a message on either side that medication is the all-in-one healing, that God is the all-in-one healing. Somehow we can grasp this in other areas, but with the mind, there's still so much unknown. that we are so quick, we are so quick to say the medicine heals or God heals. The medicine heals, or if you know how to think correctly, it would heal. And I say this with, again, with such reverence, reverence for the mind, with so much gratitude to be able to have gotten to get the help that I've gotten. I've gotten to meet people who are in different spaces, and not a lot. I mean, I've done pretty much all of this, everything that I've gone through with under $30,000 a year working part-time, which has its own struggles with that. And that adds to it. Feeling desperate, feeling like you can't get the help that you need, can feel very desperate, but also feeling like these traditional institutions are not going to give me what I need. And these environments that are only uplifting the mind in its strongest place is not giving me what I need. It's very hard to be in. And maybe that's the part that I didn't even write about and that I don't know how to write about, but that I will just choose to acknowledge for myself, is like being so stubborn that the current methods are not working for me, while being so open that methods exist that can serve me. And that's something that I really want to share, because I just shared this article with just a few people yesterday, and I just said, give me some feedback to close friends. And one said, I didn't even get to this line yet, but something about the tools, like how, like that she has tools that works for her, but she's learning how to honor that other people have other tools too. And so I think this is very important to me, because there's like, the reason that this whole conversation is political and personal and emotional and charged is that embedded in the conversation about the mind is people's deep set beliefs about magic, wonder, God, hope, reality, possibility, devastation, pain, grief, loss, science, knowledge, intelligence, truth, dependency, like things we can depend on. So, and there's a desperation. There's a desperation for us to be able to say, I depend on this, and it works. And yet there's a blatant acknowledgement that needs to happen of the diversity of who we are as people. And so it shifts what expertise is, because we don't know what expertise is. And I don't want to devalue psychologists, psychiatrists, therapists. And also, they don't have it. They do not have it. Because our current models of science and what we certify and validate is incomplete. And we need it. Like, I think about COVID and the anti-vax debates. And there's a fear sometimes in even being open and in pursuit of alternative things, where I have to check myself all the time, because I know my own biases. But my own biases got humbled because someone I loved, who was also into alternative health, died. And that's the gift. I don't want it to be dead. There's so much emotional human experience grief there, but then there's what I'm left to work on. There's the human who's still on the earth, who has to say, God, Dan, heart, soul, show me where to go. And you know what the directions go? Ask your questions. That's what Dan told me in a dream. Ask your questions. Ask your questions and try to fall in love with the world. That's the hardest part in all of this. That's all the hardest part in all of this. You see, I can't even write this. I can't even read it through. I'm okay with being where I'm at in this. I have to be okay with being where I'm at, and I'm not. Because my own biases, I want to fucking feel at ease. I want to feel trustworthy. Who doesn't want to feel trustworthy? Who doesn't want to feel like this is it? This helps. I got it. I can calm down. Boom. And also not feeling trustworthy of any of the institutions in this space, it doesn't mean that I'm not going to find something better, because people are inventing and building amazing processes as I speak. And that's something I experienced over the last 5 years, like so much. Some people are integrating. If you're someone who's like Eastern has it, well, people are integrating Eastern philosophy and Eastern medicine with Western right now. Western medicine and is birthing new things. So there's opportunity. Um, but there's so much reason for hopelessness and fear and mistrust as well. So what becomes trustworthy is our ability to grapple and to grapple with this together. And that's going to take the ability to deal with X, not Twitter, X, the unknown, the actual unknown. And it's going to take holding our unique experiences and also detaching from our unique experiences too, because the kids who are 5 years younger than me, who are 10 years younger than me, who are 15 years younger than me, who are 20 years younger than me, and who are being born this year, they're all going to have unique experiences. They're going to be able to teach me things that I don't know yet. They're going to have different things imprinted in their minds. They're going to have different upbringings. And part of the learning journey through this century is going to be listening and not telling. And that's going to be hard because we get older and want to lecture. And that's not our role here. Our role is going to be to end up listening, but it's also going to be providing wisdom. So I want to encourage an awakeness. I want to encourage dialogue and an element of doughiness of we're not done. We're uncooked. We are raw. We're in a raw moment. And even like if you have gotten support, wonderful. I remember talking to a friend like maybe 4 months after Dan died, who was telling me about her journey in therapy, and she had such a strength. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like I want to have that strength. And she was like, Libby, this is after 4 months of work. And at that time, I was like, wow, like 4 months, like 4 months dedicated to working on the mind. Like, that's crazy. After 5 years, I'm tired. I have this toothache. I had this toothache yesterday where I couldn't eat. One of my wisdom teeth needs to come out. And I was like, by the end of the day, I was so tired. And I woke up in the morning and I was so tired still after I just got 8 hours of sleep. And I was like, I'm just going to go back to bed. And I could. And I'm like, damn, because I'm someone who cares a lot about my body and I've taken like super good care of my body over these years. And I'm privileged to not have had a lot of physical pain. And just like one day of having that much physical pain, and like I'm someone who like scarfs down my food. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, just eating some soup. And I'm just like eating the soup so damn slow because it hurts so much. And I was just like, oh shit, if this is how tired you can get, from being in pain in just one fucking area, but that one area impacts your need to eat, and you have to eat because if you don't eat, you die. It's like not only is it pain, but now it's pain that feels life or death because you got to be able to eat, but you can't, but you need to, but you can't. But what are you going to do? What fucking that's what's so painful about mental health because you're like, I need my mind. I need relationships to live. I need my mind to be in relationship. My mind's in pain. It's taking so much work to be with my mind. I have to think about my mind that it's in pain, and I have to know that my mind is the barrier and the mind is the thing that I need to be able to work with, to be able to be in the relationships that I need to get the love that I need, because I literally die if I don't have love. But I also can't love without, it feels like I can't love without some sanity. And I think that's gonna be part of the ego work in all of this, is that I can love and I can be loved without some sanity, but it doesn't mean we give up on the sanity, because you need sanity too. It doesn't mean I give up on going to get this wisdom tooth removed or pay attention to what's happening. It doesn't mean that we stop working on the physical. But it also means that while the physical is not mended, how are we going to treat each other in that process? How are you going to treat yourself in that process? How are you going to be compassionate that you have to make all these changes that you have to make in that process? Because the mental health crisis is not going away now. It's not going away in 5 years. It's not going away in 10 years. It's not going away in 20 years. It's not going away in 30 years. It's likely not going away in the next 100 years. How do I want people to be in 2124? My hope is that we're working with the mind in such beautiful musical ways. And my hope during the next 100 years until we get there, I'm setting this arbitrary number. But my hope in that time is that we learn, that we stay in a mode of learning about the potential of the mind as an instrument. That we value it, that we have reverence for it, that we also are in awe, that is a fearful awe as well. And that we give grace and compassion as we hold dearly, hold so dearly those who did not make it through this current cancer. Hold each other while we are experiencing it. Hold ourselves in our journeys with it, with her. Try to personify it, honestly, I believe, because it's a relationship and it reduces it as if it's like something we can take off of it. We can't take it off. It's in us. And be inspired to live at this time. To trust that this time, in this moment of history, in this experience of suffering, this is the moment. If you are not the one who has to hold this burden, then what is your gift? Have appreciation. Have gratitude. If you're a person who holds it, can you allow yourself to be held in compassion? if you are a person who is working in the space, can you have awareness of the density of this moment in time? I say that without wanting to imprison it, because at the same time, there is a density, there is an openness, there is releases, there is expansions that are happening. All right, let me finish this. All that on the historic and scientific moment. Finally, it's important for me to express that my definition of the mind is 1, somatic, meaning body and mind are inseparable. 2, spiritual, meaning consciousness, energy, intuition, intelligence, and our relationship to others are interconnected. And 3, it's theoretical. So what I mean for that by theoretical is I have my own theory and I can own that, and we can each own that actually, because we're each intelligent. I've been blessed to work with some places, so I have developed this theory. The theory might change. My theory was inspired by a place called Paradigm in the West Coast, but it's affirmed in different spaces as well. But I just like the way they phrased it, and I say that my theory of the mind is that I do believe in the possibility of structure and coherence for the human mind unique to individuals and their needs, which means that there's both for me an overlying structure and coherence to collective intelligence, and there is also individual intelligence that looks different for different people. As a lover and devotee to energy, in one sense, there's only power in discussing this issue. Yet, as an experiencer of depression who is not free from her grasp, there is a feeling of deep vulnerability in speaking about things I am aware my personal experience and view will continue to change on. That feels vulnerable for me because the things that I shared, I had similar views of this 7 years ago before my brother died, and then that shifted it. And I had views on things 5 years ago when he did die, and I was getting help, getting support, but it wasn't embodied. I had views on things 3 years ago when it was more about spirituality, and now I have views on things now, having worked on trauma healing work, and there's still going to be work that I'm doing. But at least I can feel that the flavor always, well, I have more of the pain now, have more of the pain of the consequences of this and what is out of my control, and more of the awareness of the complexity, and more of the reverence and honor, more of the humility. And so that's why I have to want to speak. But I'm going to change. I will continue to change. My views will continue to change. My perspectives will continue to change because for me, am my own scientific experiment. I'm only able to perceive and comprehend any of this through my mind, through my experience. So we're each biased. And that's why it's going to take humility as well, I say, for the different generations, because they're literally their minds are going to be wired differently. Can we hold the both and? Can we hold our convictions and the humility? Writing to make her safe. There are knots in my stomach speaking of her, because I have received so much support from my mind already, so much support that can help many people in tremendous ways. I'm developing my practice as a coach. On a professional level, I believe in holistic, alternative, and integrative treatments. I believe there's no one way. I believe in hopeful, emergent cultural change as a foundation for mental development. On a personal level, I have more energy than most people I know. I have more vision and ability to take action toward the future than most people I know. I laugh and give love out more freely than I was shown to. I'm more spiritually devoted and curious than my culture taught me to be. All is to say, I have pretty high intrinsic motivation. And at every turn in these last 5 years, I thought I would get over and through the it And through it, it remains bound to me. I have developed skill sets, gotten jobs, moved states, initiated things that are of value to me, developed religious and spiritual practice, developed my body, practiced yoga, read books. I've explored. I'm pursuing my dreams, so to speak. I'm taking risks. I'm rethinking society, which is the greatest culprit for me. I'm literally learning techniques for amplifying and activating the mind. I have an extraordinarily loving family. On a world scale, I'm living in sound conditions. My heart is getting fuller. I have shifted much. I have stayed dedicated to layers of change. And my expression shows up at the turns screaming. For me, that mostly looks like extreme tiredness. And I'm still a very high functioning person and can execute a lot. But I've, in the last 9 months, especially, so comes in waves where it's just like a whole month. And when I moved home at the end of August last year, it was just my acknowledgement that, wow, this isn't gone. This is not gone. And I really thought like, I kept doing it like years, like, oh, well, it's another year. Like, this will be gone with time. Like, this will be out of me. This will be done. Like, this will be gone when I work with this technique or enough techniques or address the root or whatever. And just having its reemergence over and over. And um, there's so much intelligence to it. Depression is intelligent. It's giving you signals. It's giving you wisdom. It's giving you information, but it's there. And I've learned, I mean, the blessing is that I have the will to listen to it over others. And that's the challenge as well, because you go through phases where, like, do I listen to this? Is this intelligent or is this um, destructive? There's not an easy answer to that. I find it important to honor her. I think of how dismissive she is of all things self-help on the days she is most in need. And I wonder how others who don't have the tools and resources, external and internal, I have faced this, given it's something near impossible without relationship. I am learning how to relate to my depression with greater kindness. I'm learning how to identify safer places for her to be seen with, her to be seen in. My hope is to work toward a life where my depression will take new shape, a new role in my life, that the conditions will develop enough around her that she will feel safer and her grasp on me or me on her will shift. But for now, I'm learning how to accept the relationship that we are in. I believe that she, just like the depression that lives across my generation, is for the first time safe enough to speak their existence and will not be so quick to be swept away. This is a controversial part, I would say, because there's lots of, okay, depression's in my mind, as if my mind is in my brain. And you can have different perspectives. I'm choosing to identify depression as a part. If you're into internal family systems, it's a part of who I am. It's a part of our collective. And we are attached right now. We are in relationship. We are not only it. The brain changes every, excuse me, 5 years? That might be too long. Brain changes. Our organizational structures in the body change. I am not someone ever who will hold that anything is certain. So instead, can we look at that? Yes, it is maybe a scientific fact of in your being right now, but that even that fact has the potential to shift and change. But it also is being inspired by the mind. It is a relational experience. What is your relationship with depression? And so I say it's controversial because I am not putting the blame on you. There is a reason why me and depression are in relationship. And I'm not blaming myself, but I'm also not blaming her. And I'm also not blaming God or higher power or something out of me, wondering why I had this burden, because this is a gift for me too. And I don't write that here because I don't believe that it's something that everyone should have to deal with. And I do believe there are degrees of it that are so much worse than what I'm going through. And I desire relief for those people. And I also believe that there is wisdom, intelligence, and deliberate strength and power that I have, that I am able to face this, that I will face this, and that we will go through this lifetime together until we are ready to not. Envisioning a new way. It's my current understanding that depression is the call to death, the call of death herself, denied, remanifested as living deadness. To get the living deadness out of our personal and collective bodies, we have to feel. We will have to connect to the actual unnecessary dying we are causing as a world. for people and for this earth. We will have to connect with our own yearning and longing to acknowledge the limitations of life, aka the reality of death, yet connect to what is infinite. You don't have to be spiritual to believe in something infinite. Maybe we could still say that life in existence is finite, but you just by being a part of a generational history and being a part of the world now, knowing it will continue, that's an example of something that is infinite or beyond you. We will have to face the generational patterns that are ready to be broken through our living body. We will have to face the past we didn't control, but get to face now. So 2 questions I ask to your own depression are, where might I be in greater intimacy with death, and therefore life herself? And death can be literal if you've experienced death, that it can also be the death of parts of yourself. And had a meditation earlier this year, specifically this summer, as I was working through a lot of this stuff, where I was like for me, the feeling inside is I want to die. And I'm not suicidal. But that's the thought. The thought is I want to die. And I had the gift of being guided through a breath work, which is a way of connecting with the breath so that you can feel on a more subtle level than just what your thinking mind is thinking. And I had this image of dying, but like of being a fire, because that's what it feels like in my system, is like a fire is happening. So it was like the fire is happening, and earth has got me, and the wind of God, universe, spirit is flowing through me, and this fire is here, and what's burning is burning. This is how I ended up creating my coaching container, the gold standard, because fire is painful, but it's not the end of us. But I had this image that it's like, either I'm going to die and my physical body will die, but either way, this element of me is not going to be out of suffering, or I'm going to die here and get into this next stage of who I am. What needs to die? And like on a very basic level in the Christian faith, that's rebirth. That's what it is to be reborn, born again. They would just say you need to accept Jesus in your heart to have that happen. But this is the invitation. This is the invitation. What of us needs to die? And this is a complex question, because it can literally mean the ego. It can mean a part of yourself. It can mean a generational pattern. It can mean emotional habits and behaviors. It can mean attachments to how limited you think you are. Who wrote that story for you? It's not to erase real social and structural limitations. The second question is, what living deadness am I ready to face? What skin am I being asked to shed that I may move again? So here is the shedding. The skin that I'm shedding as I write this is completion, perfection. I'm so attached and in love with the concept in the Christian faith of victory. And for me, when I speak about depression, I have the image of like, I'm speaking about the dark. My voice just went away when I said that. I was speaking about the dark, and like light cannot win just by speaking about it. It's gonna trap us, because I'm afraid of the dark, because I've dealt with this since I'm a kid. I've dealt with these episodes since I was a child. I've been screaming in the dark since I was a kid. I've been clawing my own skin because I want to get out of my body since I'm a child. And that change, I am blessed, or I don't know, that I was able to move through that without becoming harming, further self-harming as an adult with more tools. But I'm not the one to write the completeness. I am not, this is my surrender. This is the skin that needs to get shed for me. I am not the one to write the end of this story. I am not the one to write the end of the story for me. I am not the one to write the end of the story for Dan. I am not the one to write the end of this story for my community. I am not the one to write the end of this story for my nation. I'm not the one to write the end of this story for this world. And as a writer, I want to see it. I want to see it so badly. I want to see. I already talked about visioning here. I hate like the nail polish on this hand is gone, right? Like I'm someone who's like, I want to see the beauty. I want to see evenness. This is uneven. This is broken. And if I was just in the spiritual space, there's this element of like, because it's broken, that's when you need God. That's when you need Jesus. That's when you need to know that your sin is being held, or, this is when you accept that the universe has got you. And I am like, fuck, no, am I accepting this? And it's a both and, because I am not accepting this reality in some regards. I will work toward what victory looks like, which at its simplest is deep reverence for the mind, invitation, curiosity, and tuning the mind as an instrument. Until I die, I say this with deep love for my mind and deep humility for my mind. And at the same time, I accept that Libby Hoffman, who is here for liberation, will not do this alone. Will not see the end of this in my lifetime, potentially. Will age. Will die. Will leave this plane and may not see the victory in this space, in this lifetime. Will endure my own suffering, my own pain. Won't call it suffering because I'm not fighting it the same way. Will watch and witness it in others. And will, and from this place of devastation, of ache, of powerlessness, will choose to act, will choose to speak, will choose to imagine, will choose to study, will choose to analyze, will choose to inquire, will choose to sit, will choose to rage, will choose to dance, will choose to, these are the hardest ones right now, celebrate and laugh. Because this journey has felt serious. It is serious. And I will suffocate myself in this snake skin. And I want to move. And I want to do it with others. And at this step, even as someone who's already been serving people in ways that I love, it does start with owning the personal experience that I've been through, and my own gift, which is to talk about the invisible. And to sit with the discomfort. Yeah, going back to my desire for completion. It's so uncomfortable. So uncomfortable. You know how nice it is? You know how comforting and easeful it is to sit around and talk about something you love with other people who know what the fuck you're talking about? And there's also can be a feeling like, for me, if I just read the next book, like if I just read the next book, if I just do the next course, if I just get the next latest research, if I just get the deepest spiritual inquiry, if I just have the next experience of deeper love, like then it will be better. Like then I'll know more. I don't want to speak. I don't want to speak to any of this discomfort, dis-ease into existence because there's more. And the answer right now is there is more. There's so much more. And that is part of the pain, to be able to hold that there is so much more. There is so much energy to be released. There is so much life to be experienced through us. There is so much love to experience. There is so much to learn. There is so much to uncover. And we have to also sit in the current experience of pain, the current experience of discomfort, the current experience of loss, the current experience of reaching. And I think that's harder. Like, there's a part of me that's like, if I just didn't know, if I just didn't believe that something was better, then I could just be upset. I could just be angry. I could just be like, fuck this. This is how the world is. We're just born with broken minds. What a god. What a human experience. But that's not how I feel. What I feel is there is so much. There's so much. And one of the hardest things is gratitude for expressing, because like anyone who's known me, there's been so much numbing in some ways that I've done. There's been so much withdrawal that I've done just to protect this little piece in me who's like, I have hope. Don't let me go. Thank you. And there's just gratitude. Thank you. Thank you for existing. Thank you for this element. That's the part that I couldn't write because I don't feel that all the time. Yeah, there's like that desire at times, that desire for it to just be bad, it to just be um hopeless, because at least that would be an answer. At least I could just stew in it. At least I could just make my way in that hopeless energy. But instead, there's the knowing that there is a radically different way to be with the human mind, and that there's the current existence, and there's me not being free from that, and there's knowing that, like any other liberation fighter, any other freedom fighter, you weren't walking with the reality of the freedom yet. You were walking knowing, trusting, believing that it exists. And something that's very tricky about liberation in the mind is we are the captives. And we're going to have to set ourselves free. Well, there's some of my living deadness that I'm ready to face. What skin am I being asked to shed that I may move again? Some other thought to play with is what action would I take if I was connected into both the reality of physical death, the shortness of my life, and the infinite dimensions of reality? Those are two different things, the shortness of life and the infinite dimensions of reality. What if I trusted that it's healthy for parts of me, my lineage, and our collective life to die? What else would I be allowed to imagine? For those of us who are not living with depression, how can we nourish environments where it is safe to both be in states of depression and allow death and dying? And I want to speak that we are not all equipped nor ready for that, and that is okay. It's okay. Even if you watch this and you listen to this and something is moved in you and you are like, but I don't get it. I can't go there right now. That's okay. Don't go there right now. It'll be here. And if you're watching this and you're like, well, this is what she just needs to connect to, and then all her problems will be fixed. Please tell me. I would love to know. That person only exists in my head. And there's a few people who have actual things to say, but how can we more collectively be interested and invested in the discovery of true wellness, creative power, and potential of our individual and collective minds? I don't have answers for all these questions, and I don't think I'm meant to, which my ego hates. Imagine how nice it would be to just have like I'm a psychotherapist and this is what I believe. And by the way, there's so many, I might become a psychotherapist, and there's so many methods with effectiveness, which is great. Doesn't mean they have all the answers, because there's still a deconstruction of the entire field of psychology that's going to need to happen. My hope is that we may be happy, that you may be happy, that I may honestly have to start with me. That's a meditation in Buddhism, is like self, someone we love, someone it's hard to love, world, right? I'm still here for me. And so if you're watching this, please send me happiness and health and wellness and freedom from suffering. and know that it is my hope that we may be happy and healthy and well and free from suffering. And it is also my hope that we may collectively begin to know a world that looks at death, that can hold depression, and that learns to shed its skin and actually move. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. We contain it all. It is only because I have gone through so much, encountered so much of my strength, that I can speak this out loud. And still, I feel vulnerable. And still, there's self-judgment in my mind. The stronger we get, the more vulnerable we get, the more artsy we get, the more creative we get. The mental soundness does not reduce our wildness, it enhances it. You are wild, we are wild, and we're capable. Structure is not the opposite. Coherence is not the opposite. And may we hold the contradictions and the process. May we hold ourselves. May we sit across from someone the next time you go to dinner. Just one tangible thing. Ask 5 more questions when you think you know whatever the answer was going to be. Can this go deeper? Can this go more? Right here, when I'm at this edge, when I'm at this fear, when I'm at this space that it's too much, where am I actually ready for more? Where am I actually ready for more intimacy, for more vulnerability, for more of being seen, for more of seeing? Where am I actually ready for more wisdom? Where is it actually going to get easier? This is not a more of more work. This is not a more of more doing. This is a more of more being. This is a more of more seeing. This is a more of self. This is a more of more shedding. Again, when we shed the skin, you get more of yourself. This is more of a next layer. This is more depth. This is more of your own darkness. This is more of your own heart. This is more of your own home. This is more of you grounded. This is more of you on earth. This is more of us on earth. The more of us who are actually on earth, the more we can actually transform earth, the more we can actually be transformed by earth, the more we can actually experience spirit through us, the more we can actually be in touch with spirit. It is not through leaving the body, it is through coming home to the self that is embodied. It cannot be removed, it cannot be separated. Even if you are someone who believes that life continues after death, even if you are someone who believes that spirit and consciousness exist beyond the body, this experience now is through the body. These words come through this mouth that had to fast and was in pain, through these eyes that want to cry, through these arms that shake. And what a gift that no other voice will get to sound exactly like this. Will be in this moment, in this context, in this space, at this desk, in this city, this moment in time.